All right, everybody. I'm excited today. We have Rachel Scheer. She's in Dallas, Texas, but actually she is from Burnsville, Minnesota, not too far from where I live currently right now. And she's a functional medicine nutritionist. She's also a fitness model and a public speaker. So thank you for so much today, Rachel, for taking some time to be on the show.
I'm super excited to be here and just chat with you today and hopefully add some value.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I saw you, met you for the first time. It's been a few months now back in Dallas at Ryan Stewman's $1 Million Mastermind, and so I'm just really excited to have you because I had the opportunity to see you speak and got to hear your story, and you have a powerful story, and just excited to share that with the listeners here today. But before we get too deep into you and your story, I always like to ask this question first: is the name of the show is Championship Leadership. And so I'm always curious, like what are the thoughts that come to mind for you when you hear championship leadership?
When I think championship leadership, I think it's a very individualized approach, I would say, because success is something that is not one size fits all. So when I think championship leadership minds or podcast, I would attribute it back to just living your truth and living up to your fullest potential. Everyone, like I said, has different values of what success would be. Maybe it's monetary wise, maybe it is something a little bit different, but it's just living your truth and living up to your fullest potential.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. And I love to hear the answers too, because I've never had the same answer, and I've been doing this for over a year now. I think we're on your episode like 38. And I continue to get different answers. So I just love, that championship leadership can mean so many different things to so many people. But let's talk about you. So, when I first introduced you, functional medicine nutritionist, what the heck is that?
Yeah, so functional medicine, it basically just means root cause. So we'll get into my story here in a little bit with kind of why I got started more on the functional medicine side. But with Western medicine, we're very much in a society of quick fixes. I like to call it the Band-Aid approach. For
Yeah.
example, people come in with migraines and we throw them on pain medication. Well,
Uh,
there's a reason behind why we're having migraines in the first place. So functional medicine, meaning root cause, essentially is just going to try to get down to the source of the problem. Why do we have a problem in the first place, and what can we do to restore function versus just managing the symptoms? So as a functional medicine nutritionist, I look at things that are more of the root cause, which is, yes, diet related, but oftentimes it can be lifestyle, it can be stress, exercise, which again, lifestyle contributes to probably about almost 90% of most illness, chronic disease. So a lot of times we manage that through medication, but I'm really wanting to get to that root source.
yeah, that's interesting because, you think about it, right? That when you talk about Western medicine and more of the Band-Aid approach, like more of the, here's something to help the pain, maybe mask it, right? Versus, yeah, let's dig and find out what's causing this, and then let's take care of that so that we can just actually get to the root of it, like you said, which seems like just the most logical way to do it. But how did we get to the point where really that's not the norm? Again, not a lot of people really necessarily understand what functional medicine is, just like what we were talking about before we started the show here. Why do you think that is, or how did that come about?
Well, everyone just wants a quick fix these days, and I hate to say it, but I mean, you look at people
Yeah, it's
in
just not medicine, right?
not just medicine, it's just honestly the way of life. Everyone just wants a quick fix. I mean, someone who has high cholesterol, we know that's diet related. We know that. We know it's 100% lifestyle. Sure, there may be some genetics that play a role too, but we just throw them on statins, we give them medication, and they make no other lifestyle changes, hoping that's going to be the fix for them. Just all I got to do is pop a pill, and
Yeah.
you see this in every place. Someone wants to go on a diet, they're just going to do all the fat burners, whatever they can. I always used to say, people will do anything to get in shape except diet. exercise.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no one wants to do the work and do what's actually hard and actually take the time to self-reflect and see like where you need to actually make changes in your life. They just want, again, that quick fix. And I get it. With today's society, you know, everything's just instant. We can get access to everything now. So it's just kind of, I think, transitioned us into that type of a mindset where things just should be easy and we can fix them, you know, on the whenever we want to, essentially.
Yeah, it goes to like, you know, giving into the cravings, and you know, you can't pass a donut or a piece of bread without picking it up and eating it, or you know, I think you're shattering a lot of people's hearts right now with that message, because it's like, man, you have to do the work. You have to be disciplined. Well, you don't have to be, but to get what you want, if you like want to be healthy, you want to have a great body, you want to be fit, you know, that's what's required. And like you said, you're a fitness model as well, and obviously you take care of your body, and you're in phenomenal shape. But like, there's a ton of work. There's a huge price tag behind that a lot of people don't see. And where did that come from for you? Like, tell us a little bit more of your story, which I think will probably lead to like the journey that you've been on. So yeah, how did you get down to this path of where you are today? Fitness model, public speaker, functional medicine, nutritionist, getting ready to start a concierge business here in Dallas by the end of the year, huge facility. Like, what happened to get you to this? Like, what's helped to create Rachel Scheer today?
Yeah, so I grew up as an athlete. I was a gymnast, I was a dancer. I always tell people I grew up eating actually very unhealthy. I ate like every single day. I ate like, I don't even know, Halloween candy. I think as a kid I stored up. Like I had a whole
yeah.
I would go get like a pillow sack full.
Yeah.
That is meals, and like, oh my gosh, like my nutrition was awful. But growing up, I really didn't have a whole lot of parental supervision as well too. So I kind of just did what I want whenever I wanted. My dad suffered from mental illness. My mom was very, very absent too. So that kind of caused it a lot of things I'll get to later on in my life. But growing up as an athlete and not being very health conscious, it kind of prompted me to want to learn a little bit about nutrition. So kind of the opposite, where some people eat so healthy, then they kind of go the opposite direction. I ate so unhealthy. I was just interested in nutrition. I was interested probably more in like the athletic side of it, just growing up as an athlete. So when I graduated high school, I decided to go to Baylor University for nutrition and dietetics. And there I studied nutrition, and I had my mind set up that I actually wanted to be a clinical registered dietitian, in which I would work in a hospital. I would do like IVs and go that whole route. Well, fast forward, I ended up working for a hospital for a while, and it just wasn't really what I thought it was going to be. I spent most of my day in a basement with like no windows, reading like patient charts about their nutrition. And maybe I got to see patients like, you know, an hour out of the whole 8-hour workday. And I just was like, this is not what I envisioned. This was not Grey's Anatomy like I thought it was.
Yeah, right.
Like, this is what I envisioned that I would be doing. You know, I've always had just this desire to want to help people. But I also like being around people. I don't want to sit at a computer all day. Yeah. So after that, I quit that job and I ended up working for a physician's private practice. And he actually was more on the functional medicine side of things. And through all of that, I learned so much more on the medical side, where I had the nutrition background. And simultaneously throughout all of this, I had started my Instagram page. And with my Instagram, I really just started it as like something fun to do. I was passionate about nutrition. I was passionate about working out. So I just started like posting workout videos. I would post like funny memes, you know, of like just, you see all those gym workout memes all on the internet rolling around. recipes that I was cooking. So I just started it as something mainly for myself, just what I enjoyed doing. So simultaneously working for other people, you know, and having my Instagram page, my following began to grow organically. And people kind of began to take notice more on like, oh, what is this girl doing? You know, with the workouts and the nutrition, she's giving out a lot of good free information. So that began to grow, and I decided I really wanted to bring the two together. And I loved being around people. So that kind of led me more into the entrepreneur side, where I decided to actually open my own nutrition practice and start doing nutrition counseling and just kind of doing what I ultimately always wanted to do, working with athletes, weight loss. But what actually got me more into the functional medicine side of it was some of these own health issues that I went through myself. So one of the things, if you remember me talking about at the $1 Million Mastermind, it was some of the gut issues I went through. Yeah. So about 2 years ago, I went through some very severe health issues where I literally lost complete control of my health, and I became very malnutritioned. I couldn't eat anything anymore without being in severe pain. I would get bloating, distension. I remember at the end of like every single day, I would be like in so much pain from eating. I was lying on my kitchen floor just crying, like asking God, like, why is this happening to me? I'm a nutritionist, for goodness sake. I'm like, my life is food and health, and I've spent my whole life, you know, focused on health. Like, this has been my foundation. And for me, for someone who that was so important to, I almost just felt somewhat like betrayed, because that was something that was taken away from me. And it even gets me a little bit emotional talking about, but I just remember like asking, like, why is this happening to me? And I went from many different doctors. I had many misdiagnoses. I was told I had pancreatitis. I was told I had, you know, different sensitivities. Nothing actually like helped me though. I went to gastroenterologists who did MRI scans, CT, endoscopy, colonoscopy, and no one could figure anything out. And they finally just were like, oh, you have an irritable bowel syndrome. And I'm like, I'm losing weight. I'm malnutritioned. I can't eat without being in pain. I'm like, I think this is something more than just an irritable bowel. So I'm like, what do I do? And they're like, well, you could take some, you know, some digestive enzymes or laxatives, even to something like that. Again, that's just a Band-Aid approach. That's not getting down to what is actually causing issues. So I ended up going to the Mayo Clinic over in Rochester, where you're at, and did a bunch of different tests, and they never really found out exactly what was wrong. But they did confirm that, kind of rewind a little bit. I was told I had to remove my entire large intestine.
Oh, wow.
I'm a colorectal surgeon. My gut issues became so severe that they told me the only solution was to remove my entire large intestine. And I was literally debating whether to do it, sitting in the office, like ready to just give up and just say, like, oh, I just want to move on with my life. I don't want to be in pain anymore. But in that moment, I'm not sure what it was, whether it was God, whether it was, you know, just the urge to want to fight for my life. But I decided I would do whatever I could to try to get to this root cause before I just went under the knife and took out an entire organ. So I was like, I'm going to give myself, you know, 6 months or so to kind of see what's actually going on. And that's when I went to the Mayo Clinic. So I went to the Mayo Clinic, and they told me that going through that procedure would have been the worst thing I could have ever done for my health. They said it's a very old procedure that they do, and usually the patients, maybe they feel better for a year, but ultimately, I guess your small intestine can actually begin to, our body's really awesome. It
Yeah,
starts to behavior and act like the same, like your large intestine
really.
begins to
That's
get
incredible.
the same form. So they're like, that would have been the worst thing to do. You'd be malnutrition, dehydrated. You know, there was a big possibility I'd walk around with a bag on my stomach.
Yeah.
You know, I'm very grateful that I decided to go there because that just put that thought to rest
Yeah,
completely.
right.
But that's what really prompted me to kind of, again, get to that root cause. So I had to make a lot of changes in my life. And I realized during that time, you know, there was a lot of things going on, more than even just dietary wise, but mentally too. I had a lot of stress in my life, even kind of stemming from my childhood, a lot of negative self-talk. And that was definitely having a big effect, but also I had to remove a lot from my diet. I had to make just a ton of different changes. But over the course of a few weeks, you know, I would have some days where I started to feel better. And then, you know, a couple months went by, you know, maybe a few issues here and there. And over time, my body just did begin to heal. And I can honestly say now I'm like 100% free of any GI issues. And I'm just thankful to God I did not decide to go that route. But that is what got me more into the functional medicine side of things. Because if I would have listened to everybody who just wanted to, mine was a little bit more severe case, like remove an entire intestine as a
Yeah,
Band-Aid,
right.
or giving me all these different medications. I really had to take control and really self-reflect and look at my life in all different areas, you know, more than just diet and exercise, but also like my mind and my stress, and just I had to look at everything and make a lot of different changes in my life. And it's just truly amazing how much like stress and mind can actually affect your body too physically. Like we always know that, but to that extent, it just blows my mind to this day. But yeah, that is why I'm now so passionate about functional medicine and helping others, again, try to find more of a root cause to a lot of their health concerns.
It makes complete sense. And yeah, you said so many things in there. You know, the, the the podcast Championship Leadership, I always look at like, well, number one, you were looking at these doctors, right, as these experts, these leaders at what they do. And it's a little bit scary that, you know, because how many people would have heard the advice from, you know, the doctor telling you to remove their large intestine, and they just would have said, yeah, okay, like I trust you, like you're the one that knows and I don't, and that's why I come here. And but there was something inside of you that just was like, oh, I just don't know. And I think, you know, maybe let's get a second opinion. Let's see if this is really the required action that needs to happen, and then to really do some research and to try some other methods as well. That's not an easy decision to make. And how old were you at the time when that happened?
I was 24 when that
So
happened.
just a few years ago. So I mean, very young, right? And again, you know, I think back to being 24, and I don't know, like, I don't know if I would have had the courage to make that decision to go elsewhere and to do that. And so that's powerful. And, you know, championship level leaders, I believe, are those that are willing to make maybe the unpopular decision, because they're willing to really fight for what it is. And you were, in a way, you were definitely fighting for a quality of life. And, you know, depending on what could happen if you go ahead with that procedure. But what were some of the things that you did try? Like, was it just you kind of testing trial and error on your own, and just like, you know, all right, you know, I'm not getting the help that I really, or the answers that I want, and I'm just going to have to go out and figure this out on my own? Was that a big part of it for you?
Yeah, so I had my background in nutrition, so I
Yeah.
wanted to utilize that as the foundation, really. What I thought I was eating a very good, healthy diet, which for most people would look at it and probably say I was.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to like gut issues, it's crazy. The foods, there's a difference between health and then like easily digestible and foods that are good for the gut. So you talk about fibers, prebiotics, things like that too. So I really had to go through and eliminate a lot of inflammatory foods from my diet.
Yeah, like what kinds of foods did you eliminate?
So foods that are very inflammatory, grains, for example, are more
Okay.
inflammatory.
Yep.
They're hard to digest. And then foods that are high in omega-6s quite a bit too. So as an American population, we tend to get a good amount of omega-6s, which are pro-inflammatory fats, compared to omega-3s, which are anti-inflammatory. So trying to eliminate a lot of omega-6s, but also on the controverse, get in more omega-3s. So a lot of more healing, type foods in my diet as well.
What would be examples of the omega-6s?
So omega-6s are things like industrial seed oils, vegetable oils.
Okay, yeah.
Some omega-6s and things like grain-fed animal products as well too.
Okay.
Those are ones, and they're going to always be in any type of processed food too. So you look at all the chips, the snack items, all of that. They're using all of those unhealthy cooking oils too that are high in omega-6s.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm sure, it was nutrition, but I think you talked a little bit more about like how the mind and stress can also affect the body. Like what else was going on for you that you kind of figured out or maybe sorted out along that way too?
Yeah. So a lot of it kind of going back again to my childhood, because I was somewhat neglected as a kid, and I didn't realize it, but how much that was really playing a role in my life. Like I knew that I had a very difficult childhood, and I always knew that. And me and my mom worked things out many years later, just because of how absent she was. So I thought I had like put that all to rest.
Yeah.
But as a kid, when your brain's developing, you're kind of learning these different mindset and also the way you think about yourself. So throughout this whole process, I realized a lot in terms of like my identity. I never really felt like I was enough. I really suffered from negative self-talk. It's been a double-edged sword throughout my life because it's been one reason, like I've always pushed myself to do different things, but it's also why I had in the past never really been fulfilled or satisfied with what I was doing. So I had to really self-evaluate to try to understand like, how are these thought patterns like negatively affecting my life? And I think it even led me to do some, pretty extreme things in terms of like workouts early on in my years where I was pushing my body to great measures, probably almost in like a little bit too much. And then it even transposed into my relationships as well too, of course. And so yeah, it was very difficult to actually have to sit back and just reflect on all these areas that were not only my weaknesses, but my demons, to try to understand as how that is also affecting me on a mental health aspect. I had to make a lot of different changes again with my identity and who I am. I think for a long time, I also associated my identity with the physical, with my achievements, which is very common for a lot of people. But the fact of the matter is you're not your achievements, you're not your looks, you're not any of those things. And when you put your identity based off of those things, when they go away, you end up lost. Or when you're not reaching a certain level with, your physique in the gym, or, whatever achievements you've accomplished, and you're just constantly comparing or trying to reach that as your identity, you're going to be very unhappy and unfulfilled, and kind of going back to what I was saying, just never really feeling like you're enough.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so much truth there. And what, so is that something that you take and And when you're meeting with clients, when you're working with clients, when you're working with folks that come to you with like, I just don't know what's going on, or, just looking for help. Is it an all-encompassing approach for you as well inside of your practice?
Oh, 100%. Like I can give somebody like the perfect diet plan and be
Yeah.
like, oh, you follow this, you're going to be in perfect shape. But the fact of the matter is, most people, it's more mental than
Uh-huh.
anything.
Yeah.
They have a lot of self-doubt that they, and things coming again from their past that are limiting them. So a lot of times, yes, I talk about nutrition, we make different dietary changes, but I think more often than not, I spend a lot of my time talking about like, what are the mental barriers that you're having to overcome? What is hindering you? And again, so there is a lot of counseling in it too. So just getting back to a lot of it coming from our past, what past beliefs or things that happened in our life that are causing this self-doubt, that are limiting us. Like, why do you not really believe yourself? We all make promises to ourselves. We make promises to other people, but we're always the first to break promises to ourselves.
Yeah. Right.
And
So true.
yeah, and I always ask why. Like, why is that? We should be the most important person that we keep a promise to. But so we build up this reputation with ourselves. So, and it can start with simple things. Like, let's say you say you're going to wake up at, 6 a.m. in the morning and you press the snooze button and you sleep in. Okay. Again, you made a promise to yourself and you broke it.
Yep.
And we do this again and again and again throughout our life. We make these little commitments and we don't keep with them. And then we build up this reputation of, when I commit to something, I don't really think I'm going to actually do it. And we don't.
Yeah.
Immediately off the get-go, just it's not going to happen. And it's subconscious. We're not like directly usually saying that to ourselves, but we're saying, I want this, but it's probably not really going to happen.
Yeah.
So one thing I always try to talk with my clients about is, how can we overcome the self-doubt, some of these limiting beliefs? One part of it is understanding why you have that, which is a lot of what I had to do in myself. Like, why do we even have these? From what past hurt experiences has cultivated those thoughts? But then also, to replace self-doubt, we build confidence. And how we build confidence is by keeping those promises we make to ourselves and by building a new reputation. So it could be little things, like it doesn't have to be huge, like crazy things. It could be like, I'm going to lay out my clothes the night before I go to sleep. So when I wake up in the morning, that decision is made for you. Just something very small, and you just stick with it. And little things here and there, again, you're rebuilding that reputation with yourself.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. I love that you do that and you take that approach, because I 100% agree. And a large part of the battle for many is that mental mindset, limiting beliefs, negative self-talk, whatever you want to call it. I have been sitting here and I've been thinking, I've been listening to your story, and to me, I'm thinking, man, the journey that you've been on, although I'm sure you would rather have been able to not go through what you've gone through to do what you're doing today. But a big part of me is like, the reason potentially that you had to go through that, or that you did go through that, was so that you could really do and impact people's lives the way that you do. The concierge business that you got going, a lot of that may not have happened potentially if it wasn't for some of the things that you went through. And of course, it's just an incredible story for you to go out and to spread to the world, as well as a public speaker, and also in your business as well. It's like, hey, look at me. If I didn't know you, I didn't know your story, and I just saw the photos and saw the phenomenal shape that you're in, and the lifestyle that you have. It's not as powerful as you're like, yeah, this is me. But like, when you dig deep and you take a look inside, it's like, this is really where I've come from, and what I've gone through to get here is so powerful. And I think, again, championship leadership is all about, you see the best of the best in the world, right? Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, Tiger Woods are some of the great coaches. And yeah, they're at the top now, but they didn't start there. They paid the dues. Their journey was pretty incredible. There's a lot of losing along the way, a lot of failing to get there. And so do you have that outlook as well for yourself?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, everyone, like, we go to these masterminds too, like they always are sharing these stories of comes from past hurt, it comes from past mistakes. I mean, none of them just lived this perfect life and then achieved
Yeah.
ultimate success. It's usually like the journey that we go on and going through these things that make us into the person we're ultimately meant to be. So it's like, of course, I would never wish what I went through
Yeah,
or
right.
on anybody. But I definitely think without it, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. I wouldn't be
Mm-hmm.
impacting lives. I wouldn't even have the mindset and the gratitude that I do for, honestly, like things like my health. Like that can be
Yeah.
gone in an instant. And I remember just feeling like I just want to live a normal life, and to have that as like a thought in my head is like I just want to be able to eat. You know, like something that's a simple need in life. And it made me more appreciative, and it changed my outlook because, like I said before, a lot of my value in the past was based off of the physical. It was based off of those things, which are very shallow, very selfish things to base your worth off of too. So no, I actually am very thankful that I was able to go on that journey. And ultimately now I believe my purpose truly is not for myself. And it is so much more than just the physical or achievements, but it is truly for others and to help others, you know, live their best life. And whether that be through their health, whether that be through mindset, but just helping other people realize their potential. And no matter what their past is or mistakes that they made, they have the ability and the power to take control and to truly transform their life. So 100%, I would say that is what I believe.
Yeah, and we take, I mean, it's easy to take some of those things for granted, and then for something like that to come along, and it's just like, wow, I just want to be able to live healthy. I just want to be able to like eat food. I mean, some of the things that you truly just, I know I do. I mean, I just take for granted, and it's a great reminder that life can change in an instant, no matter where you're at, really.
Oh, yes, for sure.
Yeah. What as we wrap this up, what are a few things that you could leave the listeners with, to really benefit them, to impact them? A lot of entrepreneurs and business owners that listen to this, and people that just they want to improve, they want to get a little bit better every single day. What are one or two things that you could leave with the listeners, before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I would say that number one, your health. I mean, it's a silly thing, but health is wealth. It is the
Yes.
foundation for everything. So if you're an entrepreneur, or, you don't have to be an athlete, you don't have to be a fitness model like me, but just, health really is the foundation. So in the entrepreneur world, if you want to be at the top of the game, you want to reach new levels of success, I would say start with your daily habits, start with your health, make that a priority. And then from that, you'll build up the confidence that you need to do better in your work. And it's just amazing when we make our health a priority, what that we can ultimately achieve and how that really transposes into all areas of our life. I would also say, self-reflection quite a bit too is a big part of this. It's not easy to sit back and look at areas in our life where we need improvement. Nobody wants to do that. I certainly didn't want to do it. But focusing on, your struggles and honestly your identity was one of the best things I could have done for myself. So getting back to just your health and focusing on that. And then also who you are as a person, as your identity. I would just encourage people to really look at that in terms of where they want to be ultimately with their life.
Yeah, and you've touched on that a few times, and I think it's extremely important, right? The identity piece of, whatever your accomplishments are, it's not necessarily your identity, right? I mean, it's a part of who you are for sure, but I run a lot of races, and I've always said, like, it's my identity isn't, or who I am as a person. My worth isn't tied to like how many miles I run or my accomplishments, which I think is very similar to what you're saying. It's a part of the story for sure, but there's so much more to each and every one of us, and so I think that's a great piece to really hone in on, and I didn't want to gloss over that. So thank you. Lastly, how can we find out about Rachel Scheer and what you got going on? I know you got a lot of things going on. So yeah, like, what are some ways that we can follow you, find out more about you as we listen to the show?
Yeah, so my biggest page would be my Instagram, which is just Rachel Scheer. So Rachel and then Scheer. So you can follow me on Instagram. I post a lot of motivational content. You'll see at the top it says my values actually in my captions. There's a lot of pretty pictures out there. There's a lot of fitness models like myself, but I definitely try to make an emphasis in differentiating myself by adding value and talking about a lot of the things that I've talked about with you here today. Yeah. They can also find me on my website, which is just rachelscheer.com, in which I do local nutrition counseling. I have some various ebooks for sale on nutrition, hormones, and then I also offer online coaching too for anybody who's not local.
I love it. And we'll make sure we get the links to all of that inside of this episode as well. And I just want to thank you so much for taking out time. This is a Saturday morning, folks, actually, that we're here and we're doing this right now. And so I just appreciate you for taking that time to be with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet. Have a great day. What's up, everybody? Championship Leadership Podcast. And I'm so excited for today's episode with Rachel Scheer out of Dallas, Texas. She's actually grew up in Minnesota, where I live, and she grew up in Burnsville, just outside of the Twin Cities, not too far from me. And I first ran into and met Rachel Scheer at Ryan Stewman's $1 Million Mastermind back in, I believe it was back in March of 2019 of this year. And she's got an incredible, powerful story. She's a functional medicine nutritionist. She's a fitness model as well as a public speaker, and she's got a powerful message to get out. I had an incredible time with her today, and I know that you are absolutely going to enjoy this podcast episode, as well as get a lot of benefit that you can take, information that you can take and apply into your life. So with that, I'd love to introduce Rachel Scheer.